Without much further ado, I invite on stage Brent Tworetzky. He's had an amazing career starting at Intuit, playing product leadership roles at Chegg, at Udacity, and is now leading product at InVision. Oh, sorry, and back. Brent, big round of applause.
Thank you so much. Can you guys hear me in the back? Great. It's such a pleasure to be here with you guys today, the Bay Area product community. I flew in this morning from New York, where I get to lovingly work with the New York community quite a bit. We're always aspiring to be as forward-thinking as you guys, so it's humbling to be here with you. I mean, after listening to Naomi there, I mean, I wish, as I was growing up as a product leader, I got to work for someone like that. That's pretty amazing, so praise you. I'm here today to talk to you about my favorite topic, which is user science. Who here loves their users? I can't really see you, so shout if you love your users. Yes, we love our users. We love our users. That's why so many of us get out of bed in the morning. It's certainly why I do. It's such a privilege to serve our users. I've been very lucky in my career. I've been able to serve people in personal finance when we built Mint, in education when we built Chegg, economic empowerment at Udacity, health and fitness at ClassPass. Most recently, I've been trying to help people make weddings easier and lower the divorce rate at The Knot. Seriously, talk about a North Star metric, lower the divorce rate. And these are such wonderful opportunities to serve each other, to serve our users. There's nothing more motivating waking up in the morning to say, how can I help people be healthier or live happier lives with their family? It's why we do what we do. If we all wanted to make a lot of money, we'd go be venture capitalists. I'm just kidding. Venture capitalists do lots of great things for the world too. But so how do we do this? How do we serve our users so darn well? The people we love, the people that we get out of bed to serve in the morning. And there's a term that I once heard by Gib Biddle called consumer science. I think users can be more than consumers, so we call it user science, and that's what I'm going to chat with you about today. So what is it? User science is the combination of understanding users' needs, their pain points, what they say they want, with what they actually do. And gosh, these are two different things. What I say I want to do is eat less than 25 grams of sugar a day. What I actually do is when United gives me that stroopwafel on the plane in the mornings, I've already blown that 25 grams of sugar in one bite. So I want to sleep 7 hours a day. I don't sleep 7 hours a day. All that stuff. And so how can we serve our users who aren't always great at communicating their needs to us? I present to you this helpful 2x2. And this is a symptom of the fact I did work at McKinsey at one point. At the beginning of my career, I've repented. So let me explain this to you, because I think it summarizes a lot of the concepts that Naomi actually talked about into something that you could take back to your teams that you can reference yourself. In this 2x2, on the left side, we've got user needs, pain points. On the right side, we've got user behaviors, what they actually do. In the top row, we've got the qualitative side of things. Things that you can learn about in user science by talking to people one-on-one in small groups. And on the bottom row, quantitative, getting information at scale. The things that we do as product managers are figuring these things out across these quadrants. So if this had been a smaller group and I had a whiteboard, I'd start asking you guys to shout out these things. It's a little hard with about 700 of you in here, but let's give it a go. How can we find out user needs in a small number? What's one thing that we can do? Focus groups, yes. What's even smaller than focus groups? One-on-ones. Did you guys read my slides? One-on-ones, focus groups, contextual inquiry is such a wonderful way of spending time with their users and finding out what they need. And as Naomi pointed out, you can't just ask them what they need. You have to actually observe them and try to pull out of them, extract from them what's the underlying pain point. They'll tell you what the symptom is, but they don't always know what the condition is. And that's us as students, scientists of users to figure out. On the quantitative side, how can we figure out at scale what people need? What's the main tool that we often use to figure out what people say they want to do at scale? Surveys, that's right, that's surveys. And a quick hack to that, yet another tool for this is SEO. If you want to know what people actually think they want at scale, start typing in Google and see what auto completes. You'll be surprised with what you find, but that actually reflects what they think that they want, not what they actually want. Then we move to the other side. What do people actually do? What do they actually do? Finding out in small levels, well, that's using tools like InVision, prototyping, usability testing, all the things like that. That shows up on the top right. What's left on the bottom right? How do we figure out what people are actually doing at scale? Amplitude! Amplitude and A/B testing tools, which we're testing at our company, Launch Darkly plus Amplitude, so Amplitude might take over this entire bottom right box. These are tools that we can use to deeply understand our users. And it's important that we know what they are, we know how to do them correctly, we know when to use them, and that we do them in a provocative way. I'm going to take you through some stories of how to do that. And these are not the only tools that we have. We've got some stuff in the middle. We've got these extra bonus things up here. Ways that cross over from understanding users in qualitative and quantitative way across their behaviors into their actions. Customer feedback that you'll get from your customer support team. You're going to get people coming in and say, gosh, I wish I had X, which is a user need. Or they'll say, gosh, something broke, which is an actual user behavior. In beta testing groups, you'll interview people when they get started, figure out how they fit, and then they'll actually use it, and then you'll realize how broken your stuff is. We've all been there. Beta testing groups. And my personal favorite tool is a diary study. This is, to me, the most transformative tool we have in our toolkit. It's also one of the most expensive. A diary study is a longitudinal watch with your users that you do over a period of time, a continual, regular check-in in a qualitative way. For example, at Udacity, an online learning company, we asked people before they started, we asked 20 people, what do you intend to get from Udacity? How do you expect to spend your time? Why is this important to you? And tell us about what you plan to do this week. Every week, we ask them, tell us about your week. How did we fit into your week? What's changing for you? What are you getting out of it? You try to do this in an unbiased way. And we would see week over week over week, we'd understand what were the triggers that changed the user's mental models of our product. How did we fit into their lives? How did we fail for them in a way that they couldn't see but we could see? It's not too ludicrous to say the path of Udacity as a company was actually written through diary studies of figuring out what our users needed. At the Knot, we used diary studies to actually set our product vision and roadmap over a long-term time frame, because you can fundamentally understand how your users and your use cases come together in a way that actually helps them achieve their jobs to be done. How do you fit into their lives? What triggers get them to think about you versus your competitors? How to get people to move from the mindset of exploration to commitment. So these are very, very powerful tools. This is the tools that should be in your toolkit. And you can use them in lots of different ways. I, as a product leader, do one-on-one interviews regularly to talk to my users, just to get a sense of, hey, how are you feeling, and how, what are your needs, and seeing how things change over time. It's getting the pulse of your users. And we, as empathetic beings who want to serve our users, that's one of the most delightful ways to do it, is to spend time with them. Surveys, I do on a regular basis as well, but for a different reason. We'll survey people about their tastes and their interests. And if you do that for your user base in a semi-regular pattern, you'll actually start to find things. So, for example, when we were at Chegg, Chegg is a textbook provider, an online learning solutions provider. We started doing a survey about which technology products you had and wanted to get. This was back in 2010, 2011, before tablets came around, and we're wondering, when should we start creating a digital textbook solution? We didn't want to be too early, just put down the 2 teams worth of tech work and miss the boat being too early. We didn't want to be too late. A regular survey about asking your users what they want and things that they're looking for can actually help you find triggers and trends ahead of time. Usability testing, as you guys know, our product InVision has become quite popular because of our usability testing tools and prototype testing. The power of usability testing, as Naomi said, is that you can actually get user feedback before an engineer touches the code. I remember the first time I used InVision back in 2013, a very smart product manager on my team came to me and said, hey, check out this thing. We can test new navigation paradigms on our site without building them. And back in 2013, I thought that was absolutely crazy. You have to work with your engineers, build this version, build that version, have people go through it. It's going to take 2 months to do it. In one day, she wired together, using Sketch, 2 different user flows. We threw it on user testing, and we were able to validate one information architecture scheme versus the other. We went from 2 months to 2 days of actually building it and testing it. Absolutely amazing. And then, of course, we rely on A/B testing and analytics every day. These are the tools in our toolkit. How do you use all these things? I just told you how you might use them on a semi-regular basis, but you can also use them as part of a product discovery process. Dan Olson, who's going to be leading a panel later, has an excellent book out called the Lean Product Playbook. I highly recommend it. And he goes into depth about all these tools. But here's one way that you can actually use this. You've got a new product that you want to launch, a new problem that you want to solve. You start in the top left and you say, gosh, let me figure out how to do this. I'm Uber, I'm thinking, how do I make it easy to get transportation? Or is that even a problem at all? You start by talking to a bunch of users and say, what's going on here? Is there a consistent pattern? You can talk to as little as 4 users to start figuring out, is there a common trend of pain points? You might do that, and then you'd say, gosh, I want to go validate that. And you send out a survey to 1,000 people, if you have access to that list, and validate it. Are these themes that you're imagining actually showing true at scale? And what did you miss? If you have that other item and you start to get nuance from that, and you go back and forth. Sitting on the left side here allows you to imagine. It allows you to explore. What are all the things that you could solve for your user? What matters to solve for your user? That is sitting on the left side here. You are in the world of anything on the left side, but you have to find something that's worth solving. And then eventually you find it. You validate a pain point. It's time to go explore solving that pain point. From there, best practice or really good practices go up to the top right. Now build a prototype and put it in front of users. At this point, you're doing a couple things. One is you're trying to figure out, does my solution, does this MVP that I built actually solve the problem? Is there a problem at all? If people said that they had a problem when I put a prototype in front of them, is it actually proving out that they want to solve that problem? This is something that used to take months to figure out, and now with our modern toolkit, it can take days. In fact, everything I just described to you is written in a popular book that says you can do it in 5 days. Do you guys know what that book is? Sprint, yes. I love the Bay Area, because you guys actually know what that book is. Sprint is, and Google Ventures design sprints are a subset of this, but it takes you through this whole journey in 5 days. This gives you so much feedback. Now, I shared with you before that the left side is the universe of anything. Once you get to the right side and you're building things there, now you're in the finite universe. From there, you are locally optimizing around the stuff that you've built. You're iterating around it. You have a flag planted in the sand, which means that you have to make a decision. Do I stay here, or do I go build something else? Because once I'm here and I've launched this, and I start doing A/B testing around it, I can't wildly make it different, or it becomes expensive to make it wildly different. So you want to make sure when you get over here on this side that you're actually truly validating your hypothesis from the left side, and that the solution you've come up with is a good one. It's close to the global maximum of wherever you want to get at this point in time. And eventually when you get to that, boom, you put it into analytics, you launch it, you see how it's going, and you do some A/B testing. This is a solid plan for launching a new product. And I've been very lucky to use this multiple times in my career to find new hard things. I'll give you a quick example to run through. At the Knot, we studied weddings. We studied weddings more than anybody out there. We talked to 10,000 couples a year. And consistently, when people are getting married, at the first third of their journey, the hardest thing they're trying to do is figure out what is the wedding. It's an expression of me. Should it be big or small, indoors, outdoors, modern, rustic, goth, what have you? We have a taxonomy that's like 20, like super deep on this stuff. And we found that that's a pain point that no one had solved, but it's fundamental to deciding everything else, including all the commercial-related decisions. So we actually wanted to figure out what's a tool to help people articulate their style so that they can go get on with the job of planning their wedding. We validated the problem by interviewing couples. We did surveys to figure out couples in the first 20 to 30% of the journey had this problem consistently. Then we tried to figure out solutions and ideas. We took some inspiration from Pinterest. We took some inspiration from this, that, and the other. We eventually found, we tried on the top right, 3 different things that sort of validated the problem but did not validate our solution. We eventually found one, launched it, A/B tested, and now about 50% of couples who sign up with us at the beginning of their journey use this thing. It's called our style quiz, and it's a magical experience that asks you some questions on like a left-right, hot or not swipe thing, and then ultimately articulates your style for you. That takes all the marbles bouncing around in your head and puts it together in a concise way. We couldn't have figured that out the blunt force way. People sometimes ask me, okay, Brent, you care about user science. What tools do you use? This is what we used at XR Group. Sorry, Amplitude, we did not use you when this was implemented 4 years ago. You guys weren't really born 4 years ago when Mixpanel and Google Analytics were put into XR Group. But a lot of different stuff. This is what we used at XR Group. And these tools all got the job done. This is what we used at InVision. Yay, Amplitude's there. Yay. But a completely different set of things. And that's okay. It's actually more important that you know what the tools are and you know how to use them. That's a first step. And then once you get to that step, knowing the difference between them does start to matter. But if your team's not using these tools, they don't know what these tools are, it actually almost doesn't matter which tool you use, unless the tool makes it significantly easier to make it usable for your team. But whether you're using SurveyMonkey or Google Forms or Intercom or Qualaroo, if you're writing bad surveys or not doing surveys, it actually doesn't matter. So for your product teams and for your data teams, it's really important that you actually train people on what these things are and how to use them. So I'll leave you with this. There are what I call the 4 learning curves of user science. Step 1, know what they are. You've already passed step 1. You've seen them all. I'd say if this were not the Bay Area, I couldn't say that you know them all. And if this were 2 years, 4 years, 6 years ago, you didn't know them all. Awareness is getting much greater in the community. But it's not consistent everywhere. And many of the biggest companies in the world still don't know this stuff, which means they're not using the right tools to deeply understand the users that they love and serve. You got to know what the tools are. Then you got to be able to do them well. The first time you actually do an A/B test, you're going to make mistakes. The first time you do a survey, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to use the wrong scale, 1 to 10 versus 1 to 7. You're going to bias your answers. The first time you interview a user, which is the most fundamental way of understanding your users, is talking to them. You're going to lead them on, and you're going to torture the answers to get you what you want in an unconscious way. It takes training to get great at this stuff. So you got to practice. All right, so you know what they are, you know how to do them, then you got to pick the right one. Stop me if you've heard this one. Product manager learns how to do A/B tests. Product manager does lots and lots of A/B tests and never stops doing A/B tests, including when they should be doing a bunch of other things, right? You just get so used to using that hammer, and A/B tests and PMs are a wonderful combination of that you choose the wrong test. You have to actually know where you are in that cycle. People sometimes, in the discovery process of understanding their users, use an A/B test to try to figure out, well, do they like this one or do they like that one? It won't actually help them understand their users better at that point. You've got to be at the right stage of your understanding. Okay, you've learned those 3 things, and then you get to the 4th one, which is value. Are you doing provocative tests? And I'll tell you what I mean by this. I remember when I was at Chegg, and we were an e-commerce company, we would do price testing plus minus 5–10%. It's a low margin business, so we would actually not rationally lower the price too much, or we would lose too much money. We're not Amazon, and we're not, sorry. If you've been an e-commerce competitor against Amazon, you know that they have different resources than you do. And you might not raise the price too much because in a competitive environment, why would anyone pay a high price? I remember my CPO at the time saying, Brent, don't just do this 5-10% thing. Do plus or minus 30%. I was like, that's crazy. No one would ever pay these prices, or we would lose so much money. But what was important, because it was a test, is that that provocative nature helped you learn. Who would buy when you raise the price 30% higher than market? Is it 0% of your users, or is it 25% of your users that have a characteristic that especially love you for one reason? And gosh, you'd learn a lot if you did that. And if you lowered your price by 30%, why would that not have the reaction that you want? Generally, people are price seeking, and so we turn that sell off pretty quickly. I remember doing new homepage tests, and Google for a little while trained us in testing the 37 shades of blue. And I remember we put the search button here or there at Udacity. We had one major call to action. And it didn't matter what color we used, where on the page we put it, how big it was, how big the font was. We still had a 68% click-through to search. It didn't matter. Our homepage tests were not provocative enough. So I encourage you guys in your testing to be provocative and get the most out of it. So there you go. That is the journey. I hope that this 2x2 is something simple enough that you can take back to your teams, learn the things, how to do them with quality, when to do them, and to be provocative. If you're interested in any more of this user science stuff, I write about it. But thank you so much. I learn from you every time we talk. So. Great.
Yeah.
It sounds like we have time for one question. Pressure. Who's going to have the big question? Trust me, you don't want to hear me sing, so let's do a question. My wife does that. My wife's actually a professional speaker,
Hi.
and she sings for her big clothes.
Hello? Hello?
So, yes, hi there.
Hi. So what if... Where do you start with all this? There's so many different tools that you've provided and techniques to provide. Let's say that you don't have a process today and you want to get to the ground running, build awareness. What's the first step?
Great question. What if you don't have the benefit, the opportunity to put all this infrastructure in place? It takes time to put these things into place. I always start with spending time with your users. The one-on-one is fundamental, and it is fast and easy. That's a great first step. Probably the second step is to putting in analytics in a system such as Amplitude, which then gives you a set of understanding. Those two tools are a great foundation because they complement each other. The bottom row, the quantitative, tells you the what's happening, the what. The bottom row of what is so important. The top row is the why. And by combining the what and the why, with increasing sophistication, you deeply understand your users. But if you have to do one what, it would be an interview. It would be your analytics, and it would be one why, it would be a user interview. And then you build out from there. Good?
Yep, that's
great. Thank you so much, everybody.